To you, welcome to the show. My name is Alex MacPhail. I love high performance teams, and today I've got a member of a high performance team. Boeta Dippenaar was the opening batsman for the Proteas for many years, playing in a great bunch of guys, achieving some great results. We've got more conversation how he transitioned from a professional sportsman, top order batsman, into the chief pilot in the flying operation and everything in between. So please stay tuned. But a very good afternoon to you. How are you doing today in Bloemfontein?
Very well, thank you, Alex. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have this conversation. I know we had a chat earlier today, and your day started in Johannesburg, and you've managed to relocate yourself to Bloemfontein back to your family.
Yeah, well, I was on night shift for the air ambulance last night, and our shift started at 5:30 yesterday evening, finished 5:30 this morning. And thankfully, no call outs. So, good night's sleep, got in the car early, and back home for the weekend.
Oh, wonderful. But okay, so today we're going to talk about a couple of things, and we're going to try and marry in the conversation from a professional sportsman in a high performing team and the lessons learned and how that plays out as now the chief pilot for Henley Air, responsible for 35 pilots and again, a high performing team of a different nature, and what are the common themes that go through it. But for the purposes of the place to start, let's go back to the beginning. You're a child from the Northern Cape, and you ended up at Grey College and boarding school, a wonderful school with a great lineage of professional sportsmen coming out of there. Talk us through those sort of last few years of school and how sporting was a part of your life.
Well, I think it actually started, my older brother that sadly has passed away was 11 years older than me, and we come from a sporting family. My mom and dad used to play provincial sport, athletics, rugby, netball, tennis, and my brother Andrew loved his cricket, and I grew up next to the cricket field, so it was just normal for a sibling to do what his brother wanted to do. And ever since I was in nappies, I mean, my mom tells the story that I just wanted to do that. So I grew up next to the cricket field watching my brother. Was fortunate enough to have a wonderful mentor in Boonzaya, who was a teacher, he's still a teacher at Newton Primary, and had an absolute passion for cricket. And his passion just rubbed off on me. I mean, he just gave massive opportunity to play the game, love the game, learn the game. And he had a wonderful mixture of mixing the school, what needed to be done, the academics, and the sport together. And, school was the thing we had to do, to go do the nice stuff in the afternoon. And from there, I transitioned to a boarder here at Grey College. And again, the opportunities I received there, was incredible in molding and sculpting my future for me.
Oh, wonderful. Well, I mean, so the opportunities then at the end of school, you obviously enjoyed your sport as well at Grey College. You ended up enrolling to study law, but at the same time studying through UNISA, so you can continue playing cricket. The cricketing is getting better and better and starts to take off, and then transition from sort of high school, as it were, varsity, and now into you were playing provincial cricket already in high school, and the transition out of the high school element and now the big world out there. Talk us through then the moment where you start going from a seasoned provincial professional into being in the fold with the Proteas and the big names. You know, that selection that your name's in the papers at Boeta Dippenaar, the newest Protea.
Yeah, look, you look at that moment, and I can always recall that very moment that you get the news, you're in the team, and it's a wonderful moment. But when you think back on it, there were so many things that happened prior to that moment that had to take place, that had to be sacrificed, that you had to put in. And I was fortunate enough, in taking a step back to my Grey College years, was the late Hansie Cronje was from Grey College. And in those days, the cricket wasn't as intense in terms of the volume of cricket that was being played. And Hansie had a wonderful, wonderful character to him. where he would, when he's got time off, he used to come practice at Grey College with the first team cricket team. And you can just imagine what an inspiration that is for a schoolboy.
Yeah.
When one of the national heroes comes to the nets, and he'll have full-blown nets with us, eh? We shouldn't hold back. He was diving in the field with fielding practice, and that inspires one.
Sure.
So I felt like I had a massive advantage when I got into the Free State team, that I've already seen Hansie Cronje. I've already experienced him. And I mean, he was the Free State captain.
Sure.
But all of a sudden, it wasn't just Hansie anymore. It was Alan Donald, Franklin Stevenson, Louis Wilkinson, Bradley Player. Wonderful, wonderful players. And all of a sudden, you play your first match. I happened to play my first-class match was against the touring England team. So my first-class match was against Mike Atherton, Devin Malcolm, Dominic Cook, Alex Stewart, Robin Smith. So all of a sudden you were thrust into this world of big boys, and you had to grow up very, very quickly.
I'm sure. Well, it sounds like what a wonderful opportunity. You're the national hero coming to play at the schoolboy level, and you end up playing side by side with him in the team as well. And then, okay, so now you've sort of painted the scene about the build-up to becoming, you're in the first class. Now your name starts getting mentioned in the circles with the national team. Talk us through that sort of time in your life and the feelings and the emotions and getting that first game.
Yeah, look, it is this ambition, and I think it's any schoolboy's dream. And I mean, for me, it was never anything else. That was the ultimate. I wanted to play for my country. And but the one thing, though, that stood out for me, and that's particularly in the first year, you almost had to pinch yourself to think that I'm actually playing here what I've dreamed about. Sure. It almost feels surreal. And to one extent, it's the big razzmatazz around it, crowds at the ground, thousands of people cheering for you, and you almost have to block that out when you start getting into the game, get down to business, because it's actually just a distraction. And you'll find that the great players could sort of find a way to balance the two, absorb the energy, absorb the atmosphere, but at the same time really get down to business when you have to get down to business, because it's still a serious game. And although it's a sport and to be enjoyed, the consequences of it might not be life and death, but it is surreal. You've got you carry people's hopes and ambitions of the country every time you walk out there. So from one point of view, it became very clear that you need to focus on what you need to do, and you need to do it well, because you're not just playing for yourself anymore. You're playing for millions.
Sure. Well, there's to put a picture up of you having played off a shot, playing in the green and gold there, and you are about to step off from the crease and start your run. Okay, so that first game was against India as a top order batsman, and you mentioned that you walk out, you got to focus, absorb the energy, but stay focused within yourself. So what were the kind of disciplines that went on in that Proteas team to set yourselves up to prepare well but deliver well, and then look at the result of the game and debrief on it?
I think the Proteas team has always been a very disciplined team, a very strict team. And I think that has been a big advantage for the team and the squad in the late 90s, 2000s, in terms of doing well in a series format. So you'll find that South Africa would always do well in home series. And South Africa actually did very, very well in away series. It's one of the few teams that could win a test match series and a one-day series in India. And in Pakistan, for that matter. And that came down to the fact that we were highly disciplined, trained really, really hard, and we almost sort of could, as long as it was a series where we could recoup if something went wrong, we will come back stronger. But that was also our Achilles heel when we started looking and talking about World Cups, which everybody will talk about and say, "Oh, that monkey on your back, you choked again, you didn't do well." But I think fundamentally the psyche of the South African is partly to do with that, and breaking the mold from there is going to be the challenge for the next generation. to hopefully bring that first World Cup home.
Yeah, sure. Okay, well, you mentioned the World Cup. So a notable innings for you, getting an 80 and the man of the match against Canada. Tell us what it's like. You're part of that 2003 squad. And, there's a talking point here which I hope we can expand on a little bit. Having had a look at the scorecard recently, it just looks like there's a dream team. I mean, when I look at this, is a time when I was quite passionate following the cricket. I see Smith, Gibbs, Kirsten, Cullis, Dippenaar, Boucher, Pollock, Klusner. I mean, it's a dream team. And on this fateful day, with the Duckworth-Lewis method, you ended up coming short by one run with seemingly the best players in the world all playing in the same team. What went on that day? Tell us about the sort of communication and how this could be potentially something so great and yet such a deflation.
When you're looking at high performance sport, high performance, whatever you want to call, whatever environment and high performance you're involved in, the line between success and failure is sometimes so thin that if you stumble or sneeze and fall to the one side, you've missed the opportunity. Okay. In the build-up to that World Cup, we were really on a high. We dominated India that toured here by us. We dominated Pakistan that came, and then we had the World Cup. But I do think we made one or two fundamental mistakes. There was massive expectation for the team to do well. If you think back into the 99 World Cup, how close we got with a run-out between Donald and Klusner and Edgbaston. I mean, it was a tight game and we lost and we fell out of the World Cup. So the expectations was massive. Hansie Cronje died 2 years before in a plane crash. So it was an emotional aura as well, a build-up to that World Cup. And I think the expectations was massive. And we made one critical mistake. The formula that worked for us leading up to that World Cup, the formula that we used to beat India, to beat Pakistan, we threw out the window. Oh. And all of a sudden, in our own home ground, or on our own home turf, we couldn't see our families anymore. We were isolated to hotels. We had functions every night. And I think if looking back, and it's always easy to say, looking back, this is what you should have done. Sure. I think the management at that stage, Eric Simons was the coach. I think in hindsight, he will agree as well. We actually needed to distance ourselves from all this hype, all this hoo-ha that was around the World Cup. And actually, why change a winning formula? And I think there we made a critical mistake. And it culminated in the match in Durban where it rained. And it wasn't that we miscalculated Duckworth-Lewis. Yeah. You'll find that the Duckworth-Lewis in those days, the Duckworth-Lewis score that was displayed on the scoreboard, you always had to add one run to it. So it never gave you the score that you were ahead. It gave you the score and you had to plus one. Okay. This is subsequently changed after the 2003 World Cup. But what people don't know is that the 12th man, Nicky Bouyer, was repeatedly or tried twice to go out to give the message in that over, and Steve Buckner, the umpire, chased him off every time. Now, maybe Nicky should have just ignored him and ran past him and delivered the message. Sure. But the rest is history, so it will forever be written as the game where we miscalculated Duckworth-Lewis. Sure.
Yeah, it's such a dream team. And tell me, you mentioned the formula. Was the formula that you're talking about keeping the team as a sort of as little distraction as possible? Or talk a little bit more about this formula that you was working that was thrown out the window.
I'll give you an example where we were always the sport has evolved a lot, and with all the touring, the teams have realized that if you keep things as normal as possible, you'll get the best out of the players. The players are away from home a lot, so give them their time when they can get away from the game with their loved ones, their wives, their kids, their girlfriends. And there was pretty much an open door policy. If when you're at home, or if I was to play in Bloemfontein, my wife will pick me up at the airport, we'll come home, I'll do the practices, do the team meetings, and be on time for everything. But in that World Cup, when we landed in Bloemfontein, I had to get on the team bus.
and I couldn't sleep at home, so I had to sleep in the hotel. And it was okay for me after practice to drive home and say hello to my wife, but then I had to drive back to the hotel to sleep there.
Okay.
So it sounds mundane. It sounds mundane stuff, but you're in your own backyard. You're not playing in India,
Yeah.
where the circumstances are different. And I think there we missed something. We needed to say, if I've got a happy player off the field, I have a happy player on the field. And there was these frustrations that started creeping in that should actually not have been an issue.
Yeah, okay. But you say it's the little things, but it's the little things that make all the difference. And certainly a formula that was working well, it does seem crazy on a critical time to then change the formula. So anyway, that wasn't a great end to the World Cup, and on to the next thing. And then there was a wonderful tour of the West Indies. You particularly had a great tour, and it just seemed at this point, things were coming together and aligning nicely for you. So your tour of the West Indies, I mean, your average over all the formats, 64 average, player of the tournament. Talk us through your experience on that tour and what it meant for you as a player and your role in the team and in the success of the team as well.
Yeah, I think there's very much similarities that we can take later on into the cockpit. But when you play well, you don't overthink the game. You know what you have to do. So role definition is critical. I'm in the team to do this, and this is what I'm going to do. And then secondly, what becomes important, when you start building up some confidence, you don't overthink matters. You keep it simple. What is the most important thing to do? And that's all you do. So with cricket, it becomes easy. You need to get, as a batsman, to know when to switch on and when to switch off. You cannot concentrate 4 or 5 hours in a one-day innings or 6, 7 hours in a batting throughout a whole day by concentrating the whole time. You need to be able to hit the switch. If I'm standing at the non-striker's end, I switch off. I relax mentally. But when I'm striking or facing up to the bowler, there's a switch that needs to go on. I need to focus now. It's a tunnel focus. And I'm not trying to think of what I need to do. The work I've done in the nets, all the preparation that I've done has culminated in this small moment where I just play the ball, play on my instincts. But you need to have a clear mind and keep things simple.
Okay, it's great words. I can remember another story. It was top flight batsman being told, listen, things go through your head, but you just need to say, that's fine, I'll deal with you, this wolf that's chomping at the bit. Can you just stand down there for a little bit, and at the end of the game, we can talk again. Today, I'm playing cricket.
Yeah.
And so that series was great, and I put a picture up there of you with Andre now celebrating man of the series man of the tour of that series in West Indies. And all the photos you've shared with me so far, there's just some great pictures of you in teamwork. Tell us about these sort of special times where you're celebrating as a team, but you also get a little bit of extra credit. But it always seems like you're around the team and you love that team aspect.
You can have a look throughout the history of great sport, of great teams, and cricket in particular. The team is always central to the theme, and although although there are some individuals that stand out and have magnificent performances, and there are even sometimes times that some teammates have horrible tours, the culmination of them all working together is actually a wonderful thing to see, and every now and again you get the accolades, which is wonderful. But our cricket is one of those things, and it's very much a mirror of life. I mean, if you look at we probably fail in life a lot more than what we succeed. And cricket is very, very similar to that. But it is about getting up again, getting that support next to you, and moving on to the next challenge, and then repeating the process.
Sure. Well, you mentioned it's cyclical on this wave, and to coming off this tour, you must have been feeling on a high, done very well. But now you've got a major setback. You injure your wrist, and that it just seems to be that things are coming together for your time as a top flight top order batsman. And talk us through the injury, not only the physical pain, but mentally. How do you approach this? Your opportunity was there, the window was there for you, and you took it. Now the window's open for somebody else, and they're going to go for it, obviously giving it their best. How do you approach the injury physically, and how do you get that your head ready, the mental game, to get back in that saddle once again?
Look, I think what the important part is to go through all the processes of dealing with this, because sometimes you do expect anger, denial, and I've always found that you need to go through there. You get to the point where you say, right, this is where I am now, and how am I going to get to where I want to be? And as soon as you get that mind shift made, and for me, unfortunately for me, sometimes took longer than I think it should have, looking back. And you'll find that the top, the elite sportsmen that I've had the privilege to play against, who deal with these diversities in a very quick and efficient manner. So Jacques Callis will get a first ball duck today. Or the evening he has forgotten already about it, and he's already focusing on what he needs to do in the next innings.
Yeah.
And that's what you find with the great players. The ability to quickly deal with adversity and move on.
Okay, that sounds good. We're talking about big changes and adversity and switching it on and off. I want to show a little video clip now here, and just to set the scene, there's some questions coming through about what happens in the change room before a big game. Well, the biggest game cricket had ever seen is about to unfold in 2006. Let's watch this little clip here. Ricky Ponting having a field day and smashing the ball all over the park.
Too many. Oh, he's hit that way over the top as well. And he's got him. No, he's got him. That's a great catch. That's a wonderful catch by Dippenaar. Well, this is as good a catch as you see in circumstances like this. He had the rope right at his heels. It was as flat as a tack. The ball would have gone at least 5 meters over the boundary. And it has been brilliantly caught and brings to the end what is one of the most brilliant knocks ever seen here, I feel certain.
Boeta Dippenaar had to judge it well. It stayed just inside the rope. But Ricky Ponting...
Wow, okay, so that game, the 4-3-4 chase down to 4-3-8. Going out to this game, the series is tied 2 games each, and Australia just climb in, and particularly Ricky Ponting, he's smashing it everywhere. He's having the innings of his life, of the history books. And you are instrumental in the end, taking that catch, a difficult catch, on the boundary. Tell us through your feeling a minute before this catch, and then in the catch, and what happened next.
Look, you almost get, there is a little bit of anxiety when a ball does come to you. And particularly a high ball in the outfield where there's a bit of time to think about what's going to happen. But the one thing I've realized is if the ball goes up and you don't want the ball, you're in trouble. So you might have that bit of anxiety, that bit of uncertainty, but if you can get that out of your mind quickly and trust your instincts, the rest normally takes care of itself. But I always remember the words, one of the coaches always says, winners want the ball. So you want to be in the thick of it. So if the ball goes up and you want the ball, you've got half the battle won. But it was a surreal day that, I mean, we won the first 2 one-day games. Australia came back strongly, won quite a tight game on the 4th game in Durban. I think they won by 2 or 3 wickets. So it was all set up for the Wanderers. It was a Sunday game, a day game, and Ricky Ponting played an unbelievable innings. But it was one of those days where you almost felt that this just can't be happening. The balls are just flying all over the Wanderers. And Australia must have felt, well, this is a done deal. This series is done. It's in the bag. It's coming home with us. And Jacques Callis actually broke the ice. We walked into the change room and he said that, well, he thinks they're about 15 runs short. The bowlers have done their jobs. Now time for them to do theirs. And he did it jokingly, but it broke the ice. Sure. And everybody just started laughing.
Sure.
But the magnitude of what the score that was set actually allowed us to throw away all everything that hindered us from just playing with absolute freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And to this day, I always say that I wasn't known for the quickest run scorer. I said if I batted another 2 overs, we wouldn't have had overs left to win. So I should have been man of the match for getting out so early.
Well, that's a great story, Boeta. Awesome. And I think that the sort of use of taking the lid off the pressure cooker, Jacques is saying those kind of comments, I think it's great. And I'm sure that plays through in lots of areas in life. And we'll get to the cockpit later with things like that too. Okay, so you've regrouped in the change room. And now the freedom starts, and you go out, and unfortunately for you, not a great start, and you go out with just the single. But as you say, it opens the door for Herschel Gibbs. So let me just play this little clip here of just to bring people back into the moment.
A huge six. Well, who would believe what is happening here? Oh dear. Oh dear. Well, when luck's on your side, ride it.
Some would say fortune favours the brave, Tony.
Oh boy. What a shot. That's an unbelievable shot.
What can you say?
That's in the air, and there's a fieldsman down there, but it's gone all the way.
That's one heck of a shot.
Simon's to him again, and again. Oh, that's a bigger six. That was a rank full toss. It's a question of help yourself at the moment. In the air, and that's it. Well, I'm afraid to say that section of the party has come to an end.
Oh, it's a great way of saying it. That section of the party has come to an end. I mean, just watching that clip again now, I can remember vividly sitting at my in-laws' house watching this game unfold. It was just something to behold. Okay, so he's unleashed and he's just going full out. Tell us about your experience of Herschel that day. I mean, he's opened up the taps and he's just going for it.
He's an entertainer. He's been his whole life. He likes limelight. So he likes to entertain the people. And the stage was saying to do just what he did that day. And although, I mean, there was a very innings between Herschel and Graham Smith. I think Graham Smith scored 87 or 92. And that sort of set it up. But we knew that we stayed with the run rate, but there's still an awful lot of work to do. And for some reason, you look at these type of stuff, you chase a big score, you normally stay with it, and then eventually something happens. You just fall a little bit further behind. You lose a 1 or 2 wickets, and you sort of fizzle out of the game. But it never happened. The next guy would come in and stick to the required run rate. Johan van der Walt played a crucial innings. I think Roger Telemarcus made 18 of 10 balls. It was crucial. But Mark Boucher, Mr. Cool, and I mean cool, calm, and collective, like you cannot believe. He just kept everything together. And then obviously probably the most famous single in world cricket was Mackay-Sheeni's touchdown to third man in the final over to give Mark Boucher the strike to finish off the game. It was spectacular. It was one of those games that will be remembered in 100 years' time, and we will talk about, or the next generation will still talk about this incredible game.
Oh, it's amazing. I see we're having a bit of video quality issues. I can still hear you. But sure, the greatest match ever is a quote that I read this morning. 872 runs scored that day. Just wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. You guys got over the line. Boucher getting that 4 at the end there. Like you mentioned, Mtini getting the single to free him up to get the 4. Talk us through the change room after that. The players walking into the change room. You've just done the unthinkable. What's the mood in the change room? What's the conversation like? Boeta, are you there? So we're having some technical issues. Can you still hear me, Boeta?
Yeah.
There we go. Back again. Okay. So I don't know if you heard the question. So you've just gone over the line. You've won the game. What's the mood in the change room like there?
It was. Ooh.
Oh, we seem to have a bit of a dip here.
Look, it was ecstatic. And I mean, there was 36,000 people in the bull ring that day that didn't, yeah. I can still hear you, Alex.
Okay, carry on.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Carry on. Carry on with the story. Ecstatic.
Yes, I'm back. Look, it was incredible, ecstatic, and electrifying because 36,000 people in the bull ring didn't move till the end of even the presentation proceedings were concluded. It was phenomenal. Can you hear me now, Alex?
Yep, we're good. Okay, so the picture is coming and going, but I can still hear the audio.
Alex?
So if you continue on with the audio.
Yeah, no. So the festival, yeah, and I mean, you just had to pinch yourself to fight that there because it was this buzz around the field. The closest thing I've come to experiencing something like it was playing in India, but an incredible buzz. Evening for very, very long because the celebrations were incredible. Like yes, so the series hang over the deck and they really made most of the evening to enjoy that. It was a once in a lifetime experience.
Well, I'm sure. Okay, folks, sorry about this, the technical issues. Let's just see if we're on the same page again. Yeah. Okay, so people stayed there till the end of the game. You know, the presentation, it's getting dark and there's still people in the... I remember the television continued on for a long time as well. The buzz over the next week, a week or two down the line was the end of the series. But what was the sort of talk amongst yourselves going forward? You obviously celebrated that day. A week or two later, you kind of have to pinch yourself and wonder, what did we just do? We've just rewritten the history books.
Yeah, I think it was a bit of a Bannister moment, when he broke the sub 4 minute mile mark in the 1940s, and we saw subsequently after that that incredible game where teams all of a sudden started scoring 100 or 350 on a regular basis. So we saw that what was seen as the normal, that there was a massive paradigm shift. And that was, it's actually quite rewarding to think of it, that the influence that game had on the future of one-day cricket.
Yeah, and I know there has been a few scores, individual team scores a bit higher now. I think it's 480 odd is the single innings score, but still the highest ever run scored on one day in the combined innings of 872, and that'll probably stay there for a while still. It's about the same time in your Sorry, it's about the same time in your career now that you start looking at other things, and you've around this time, or maybe just before, you've had an opportunity for a demo flight with Henley Air, with Andre Coetzee. And talk us through how helicopters started becoming a feature in your life. You're still playing professional cricket, still touring, but the bug is bitten now.
It is by pure accident, almost fate, I would say. With the 2003 World Cup, we had a team building session in the Drakensberg, and part of the team building, they divided us up into teams. They blindfolded us, and with the LOS 3, they dropped us somewhere in the woods with a map and a compass. And I thought, geez, this is cool. And 2004, we toured New Zealand, and playing in Wellington, we had a lot of rain, and they brought in AS355, the twin squirrel, to come hover over the wicket to dry it. And as the guy landed, I ran out to see him, look, this thing fascinates me. Can I hop in? And when and we were blow drying the pitch dry, and had a quick trip around Wellington. And I came back, and I've got a mutual. I have a friend called Robert Harris that used to work for Goodyear, and Goodyear was the Free State sponsor. We were known as the Goodyear Eagles in those days. And he said to me, you know, it's funny that you say you like helicopters, because I've got a friend that I studied with at RAL called Andre Kutsia, who likes cricket and he flies helicopters. He says, I'll arrange for you for a demo flight. Okay. And I think it was about the 3rd or the 4th of January 2005. No, it was a bit later. I think it was about the 10th of January. We were in Johannesburg, and Robert said, look, he's arranged for us for a demo flight, or to go fly in a helicopter. And Andre took me in Zulu Sierra HDW, Hotel Delta Whiskey, around the Joburg area. And I just loved it. I loved it from the word go. I was incredibly intimidated by this flying machine. And I started that year, completed my PPL. And from then on, I just never stopped. I just continued doing CPL subjects, continued my CPL, finished my instructor's rating, finished various ratings, finished my ATP. And it's been one heck of a journey. I said that I've had a wonderful time playing cricket, but what I'm doing now is even better.
The chopper pilots are going to jump onto that one very quickly. They like to hear those kind of stories. So tell me, 2005, 6, 7, you're still playing professional cricket. I mean, you're still playing for your country. You're playing for professional cricket for another 5 or 6 years. What are your teammates? What are they saying? What are they asking you about? You know, they see you in the books. What is this flying thing? This flying nonsense? Concentrate on your cricket. What is that kind of buzz? What's happening there?
Yeah, I think they all thought it was just a bit of a hobby, something to scratch your back with, to keep you busy. I don't think any of them ever foresaw that I will use it as a career later on. I must say, neither did myself. So if I think back now where I am, I would have never thought I would have finished here.
Okay, but I know then you went on, you took it quite seriously. Stayed on the helicopter line, and you continued in upskilling yourself and did just about all the qualifications that you could do. And I know that one of the goals for you at the end of the year is to be grade 1 examiner on a rotary wing, and that's certainly a significant achievement, and it requires a lot of work to get there. So well done for the effort. But tell me about this photo. Yeah, you've got a picture of the Sable here and a Robbie 44. Tell me about the picture with game capture.
Yeah, look, I've always had a great love for the outdoors, and so flying helicopters and doing game work has been incredible. But I've been around some game capture operations while I've been a commercial pilot, and I thought, I'm pretty sure one can do this differently, better. I mean, you see these videos on YouTube, guys doing game capture work, and they fly like hooligans, to say the least. So at about 2,000 hours, I decided I'll take the plunge. I never wanted to be a game capture pilot, and I actually just thought that my love for animals and these two would marry each other might be something to enjoy, which I did. And I've come to realize that one can fly a helicopter well within its limits, well without putting in any additional strain on the helicopter, and work as efficiently, if not more so, doing it. But I'm thankful that I only waited until 2,000 hours before I could do that. But it's a heck of an experience. And I mean, you guys in the fixed wing industry have a very, very structured way of doing your work. We in the helicopter side are a lot more, I would say, diverse, flexible, think on your feet, because our environments are so different. But that's the beauty of it. There's place for it all, for all of us.
Yeah, that's it. Well, I mean, you've got diversity here. I'm going to put this picture up of the photo of where you're currently now. That you for the last 18 months have been involved with Henley Air, and coming up a year as the chief pilot. And there's a picture of the hangar with as you mentioned, diversity. There's probably at quick glance there's about 7 different helicopter types, almost like a the toy store, the playground. Talk us through the diversity of Henley Air and the different types of operations that you're involved in there.
Look, we're a classic training school where we do anything from basic training, ab initio training, to some really advanced training. We've been fortunate. We are the biggest operator of Bell 222 helicopters in the world. Airwolf, I think we all know Airwolf from the 80s. So we use the UT model, the utility model with the skis on. And subsequently, we've also developed our own, in conjunction with SimiFlight, our own FNTP2 Bell 222 UT model simulator. So it allows us to do some more advanced stuff in more depth than what you can actually do in the helicopter itself. And then the biggest part of our business is around the charter commercial side and not the training side. So we can fly precious metals on one day to flying high value customers in the twins to various locations where they need to be, to HEMS operations as well. And we've recently started doing the game capture as well. So we've got a very diverse fleet in what we do, and we've got a very diverse application. And funny enough, this diverse application has helped us and stood us in good stead during this lockdown period, where we still have operations that's ongoing.
Okay, that's interesting. Now, you mentioned a couple of key things that before I dive in on the HEMS and the sort of specifics of it. So far now, we've talked a lot about your cricket careers and high-performing teams, professional sportsmen, and the transition now. What were the kind of common themes that you felt that married over? You know, working in a large group, you had a great support staff as a professional sportsman, and also, you know, aviation is dependent on support staff. What common themes did you see coming through from a high-performing sportsman and running your team now as the chief pilot of a big organization with lots of facets to it?
I think that for me, always one of the biggest aspects is that individuals have to buy into a bigger vision. If you get the right people on the bus and you get those people to buy into the right vision, you can accomplish so much more than what you think is possible. And that is a critical part for me. So you'll find that the great teams of the world, when they gelled well, they had the common goal, the common vision, the common theme at heart. You can almost do your job without having to worry who's doing something next to you, because you know he's doing what he needs to do in order for the process to move forward. And I think that is the one advantage that we had under the leadership of Andre Coetzee at Henley, is that Henley is not about Andre Coetzee. Henley is about everybody buying into this collective vision where we want to set the standard for what rotary wing flight should be about.
Okay, sure. And then you mentioned a couple of things there, and then the key player there being Andre being in charge of Henley. If you think back to your sporting days, is there some particular captains that either stand out, or the attributes of captains that you played with that you thought that's great and that you find yourself modeling on now as in a leadership position of a bunch of pilots now?
I think it's important that a leader needs to know what's happening around him. It's one thing to have a very strong vision, but you need to have a feel for the people that you want to achieve that vision with you. That is a critically important part. So you need to let your ears need to be on the ground. And then secondly, you need to be able to do whatever you expect everybody else to do. That is a critical part. If you want everybody else to work hard, you need to set that example to work hard. If you need, and that is the critical part that I see from somebody like Andre, to Graham Smith, to Hansie Cronje. And you get every now and again people, Hansie Cronje to me, I think if people can look past the unfortunate part that happened towards the end of his career in life, the one thing that man had was an aura. He commanded respect. He didn't demand it. He commanded it. He'll walk into a room and everybody will know, wow, who walked into the room?
Okay.
And but those type of leaders are very, very scarce.
Sure.
I think the majority of us can aspire and improve to be very, very good leaders. But that aura, that ability just for people to look up to you even without saying a word, I think those leaders are born and not developed.
Okay, that aura, yes, certainly a great man, Hansi Krunia, and it must have been a privilege to have opportunity to play with him, to work with him, to see how he works and the work ethic. You mentioned HEMS earlier, so there's a photo of airborne in your chopper. Explain what HEMS is for the layman and the risks and the sort of the planning and the structures that go with it in order for this to be an effective unit that can deliver consistently as a high performance team.
HEMS is Helicopter Emergency Medical Services, and we operate out of Henley Air. We were the first Part 127 operators to be certified by Civil Aviation Authority in South Africa to operate with NVG glasses or NVIS. So it's enhancing, for those that don't know, night vision goggles. Enhancement to VFR flight at night. We have the ability to land anywhere, anytime, weather permitting.
Okay.
So it becomes critically important that every member knows what he needs to do, because we'll go into an intersection in the middle of Sandton where there's wires and poles and street lights and stuff, and have the ability, if it's big enough and safe enough, to land the helicopter safely in there, and then to get safely back out, because half the problem is getting in, the other problem is getting out. And so you will go from there to different areas around the country. We service the whole of Gauteng, Limpopo, and Mpumalanga, even some Free State Northwest areas, where you have to land in areas where there could be brownouts or dust outs. So it is an incredibly dynamic field, and it's a field where experience can never be shortcut. And I think that is the one thing that I, in my short period of time, have learned. I've been fortunate enough to have highly experienced pilots around me. But the common theme is real. You cannot take a shortcut on experience. And I think part of Henley's success as a HEMS service provider has been the fact that since day one, when a HEMS operation started in South Africa in the late 70s, early 80s, through STAR, there's been a lineage of pilots and how the information and the experience have been carried over to where we are now. There's a direct lineage. So there is a learning process, and that experience needs to be carried over to the next generation, because it can get quite scary at night flying it feels like flying in a dark hole at times.
Okay, I'm going to put a picture up there that you shared with me. They're landing on a night on the road there. It's obviously a motor vehicle accident. There's traffic backed up. Yeah, so I can see if it's dark out there, it's very dark. There's lights on the helicopter, lights on the traffic, but black all around. Talk us through that situation and what are you looking for? How are you relying on your team? What inputs do you get from a team on the ground? Maybe you don't even have verbal communications. You might be using some kind of hand signals. Talk us through the approach into a situation like this.
Well, we generally don't have radio comms on the ground. What we do have is our paramedics on the ground will say an area has been cordoned off, but it remains the responsibility of both pilots to ensure that that landing zone is actually safe. So we also rely very heavily on the paramedics, and particularly the night crew are highly experienced paramedics that have flown with us for quite some time. So when we turn final approach or do a recce, we all at once, everybody's eyes are outside. Left-hand side checks on the left-hand side, right-hand checks on the right-hand side. And at any phase during 200 foot or below, if something does not look right, you call it. Whether it's the paramedic at the back saying, I see something, I'm not happy. You go around, you do it again, till you are 100% sure that approach from 200 foot down to the landing zone is safe, and that we can safely get out again. It is actually wonderful to see the synergy and the interaction between everybody doing their part to get that aircraft down there safely.
Oh, it sounds like an amazing opportunity and a nice experience to go through. I'm using up a lot of your time, and there's just a couple of more things I want to get through. Here's a great photo that you shared with me. Talk us about what is going on in this picture. Hotel Bravo Yankee. That looks like Charles Schwartzel standing next to you. A cricketer and a golfer trying to do helicopter flying. What's happening here?
It's a recipe for disaster. Yeah, you can't make it up even if you want to.
Sure.
Charles Schwartzel is one of Henley's clients, and he's a very keen aviator. Charles Schwartzel, although he only holds a PPL, he type rated on the Jet Ranger, the Bell 407, and his fixed wing PPL has got an IF endorsement with it. So in the States, he flies his own PC-12 around. Okay. So he happened to be back home, had to renew his PPL license, and I was fortunate enough to spend a bit of time with him. We had a good chat and scare each other about in the helicopter a little bit.
Have you had a round of golf with him as well?
Unfortunately not. I would love to do that. I hope just they'll give me a couple of extra shots in the handicap.
One day. Oh, thanks, Boeta. A couple of things that you've said along the way, and people are asking questions and they're diving in. So some questions I want to get to. Some of the other sportsmen out there are prevented from doing high-risk activities. Did you pick up any of that feedback or pushback from Proteas cricket flying helicopters of all things?
No, I think they realized I'm not the daredevil type. I always say I'm a bit of a scared pilot, a conservative pilot. I enjoy what I'm doing very much, but I'm not one to push the boundaries.
Okay, cool. All right, so, and then another question coming through is, what was your camaraderie like from the opposing teams? I mean, let's go back to the 438 at the Bull Ring. What was the synergy with the opposition in general, and maybe particularly on that day?
You know, the interesting thing that I want to say is the Australians have been the toughest team that I've ever played against through the various years. But I've always found them also the most approachable and keen to share information and keen to share technical knowledge and general outlooks on the game. They've actually been a great bunch of guys. I found that the English were a little bit less forthcoming in terms of sharing information with and having a drink or two with. But the Australians have actually been very hard on the field, but incredibly friendly and open for discussion off the field.
Okay, that's great to hear. It's nice to have that sort of combined passion and camaraderie, not only in your own team, but in the bigger scheme and out in the world, and similarly in flying as well. You know, you have these relationships that you foster in the beginning. And it brings me to the point that you mentioned, one of your earlier coaches, I think Bunzai, the instilling that love for learning. How, as a senior instructor, as a training organization, how do you go about fostering that love for learning in your students or your instructors that are training the students at Henley?
Look, I think excellence plays a part. If you want to be average, you will be average. And I think we've always strived to not just be average, but be great. So I think, greatness is achieved over a long period of time, continuously, consistently doing the right thing over a long period of time. So that's what we try and do, and make sure that that is what we're aiming for, firstly. And secondly, I think it doesn't matter who you are, how qualified you are, how experienced you are. You need to know there's somebody looking over your shoulder if you're not doing what you mean to do. I think that there's a responsibility to have accountability within an organization. And it's not playing a schoolmaster. It's a matter of a culture where we strive for excellence. And if you don't adhere to that, we want to address it, why, and how can we fix it.
Well, Boeta, it's been a wonderful conversation chatting with you. I think that's a great place to leave it there. You've answered my question before I even ask it. So thank you for your time. I hope you have a great time with your family, get some rest before your next shift, driving all the way back to Rand Airport. And I really appreciate your time with me today.
Thanks. It was wonderful to spend time with you and everybody listening. And I hope many safe flying hours for the future.
Okay, thanks, Boeta. All the best to you and your family. Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you.
Folks, thank you so much for joining the show. Once again, it was a wonderful conversation with Boeta Dippenaar, sharing stories of professional sports and bring it into the cockpit. Wonderful. Thank you. If you could continue to subscribe, share, like, post your comments, and spread the good word. Until next time, stay safe.